What I've got in front of me here is basically the full chairmaker's tool set that I need to make a chair. I've set out my very first chair here as an example of what you can do without a lot of these tools. What you see here is a lot of duplication of tools that sort of do the same thing that the other one does, only better, or maybe one is a rough tool and the other one's a finished tool. This is basically what I would use now, but when I started out I didn't have all these. I only had maybe 5 or 6 of these tools. A lot of the tasks can be done with a very crude object. In other words, over here I've got a few tools for seat carving, but truthfully most of it can be done with a simple gouge. All right, I just want to point that out to you so that you don't confuse this ever with something that should stand in the way of you being able to build a chair. A lot of these tools are helpful, but not absolutely necessary. That being said, I'm going to run you through what it is I've got here so you can see, and then as I approach each task, I'm going to talk about the tools used in that task, the possible tools, the most necessary tools, and then I'm going to show you how to tune them up and how to use them properly. So starting over here with seat carving, that's one of the more unusual things we do in chair making, so I think it's a good place to start. You've got an in-shave here, and you've got a travasher, a rasp, and a gouge. Now, of course, you can do all this work with the gouge if you wanted to, or you could do it all with just about any of these tools. It's just about how much time you're going to take to do it. So on your first chair especially, I wouldn't get too hung up on some of these more specialty tools. Over here you've got what I would call your shaping and shaving section, which is your draw knife, very useful for carving, especially on the project we're going to do for this video, and a couple of different spoke shaves, wooden and metal. I use wooden and metal interchangeably sometimes, but specifically sometimes I prefer them for different tasks. That being said, of course, when I started out, I think I only had one metal spoke shave. These over here are your basic set of tools that you're probably already going to have in your workshop. I've got a scraper, I've got a saw, and I've got a hand plane. These are just basic woodworking tools that of course come into play here. I especially want to draw your attention to the scraper. The scraper is one of those tools that can replace a lot of these different things because you can really do a lot of shaping and surfacing with that tool, especially when it's properly sharpened. Back here we have one of our more specialty tools, which is a reamer. This is one of those rare tools that when I started, I actually made my own, and it was pretty crude, but it got the job done, and I'm going to talk about how to use that one. That's a really important tool. That just takes a cylindrical hole and turns it into a tapered one. Now, to make that hole, we're going to use drill bits, and I'm going to show you how I shape my own drill bits that I find the most useful way for me to do that, and we're going to talk about other ways of drilling. I've got Forstner bits, we'll even talk about auger bits and things like that. There's lots of ways to make a hole. As long as it makes it to your specs, then it's the right way to do it. Over here, I've got my turning tools. You can see I only have 4 main turning tools. This is really almost my whole kit of turning tools, and that's a great place to start. I've got a way to measure, and also I've got some more specialty tools. This is a great kind of thing if you're just starting out in turning and you're not so great at it yet. You can use this to help you make your joinery really top-notch before your skills are that far along. Over here, you see I've got one lone wedge, and that wedge is really just representing all the green woodworking tools that I show in the green working section of this video. So as you can see, it's not that many tools. They're not that complicated, but they sure can make a lot of great work. So today we're going to go on site and out of the shop here and into an environment where I may not have some things I need. So I'm extra careful to look over everything I'm going to bring with me and make sure I've got everything that I'm going to need. That first starts with all the safety equipment and of course the chainsaw to do the cutting if we're going to be splitting up a log. So I've got my chainsaw here. It's important that I've tuned it up and that I make sure that it's in good operating condition. Nothing is worse than getting out there and not having that work. It's also important that you keep it sharp, either have it professionally filed or file it yourself. After every few filings, I will definitely take it in and have somebody put it on the machine and grind it properly for me. That really extends the life of that saw blade. After that, I need to look at my wedges. That's really the main thing, is that my wedges and my sledges are going to get most of the work done here. So I've got a bunch of my wedges out here. So you can see I've got wedges, and a lot of these I've taken care to cut off any excess mushrooming that is going to cause trauma for me around these edges. But then there's some that you can see here that I haven't done that with. So I'm going to have to take my angle grinder and fix that one up, and I'll show you how I go about doing that. I have a couple of different kind of wedges that I like to use. I've got these long, skinny stave wedges, and the stave wedges are really great because they really slide into the log a long ways before pushing it open too much, so the split tends to run very nice and straight, plus just being less of an angle to put in there, they're easier to push in. The other ones are just standard ones. I just pick these up whenever I see it at a flea market or a garage sale. I just buy it, hopefully for 10 or 15 bucks, and sometimes for as low as 2. Who knows if people don't know what they have. So as you can see, I've got a few of these. I've probably had about 15 of these over the years. I have like 4 sitting in front of me. They do tend to get lost in the dirt, especially in the snow if you're working out in the snow. So I do like to paint them. You can see many times I've painted these, the summer color being white and the winter color being red, and that always wears off. So it's a good idea to keep up on that. But mainly the condition of them, which is the edge, is really critical. You can see here that I've got some problems with some of these edges. They're a little blunted. That's not going to help me at all. So again, I need to get in there with my angle grinder and take care of that. These are some really nice stave wedges. I'll list where you can get these on my website on the information page about this video. And these are really fantastic. So I highly recommend these. I'm also going to need some hatchets. These hatchets are going to help me clear any excess webbing just to free the log up. I also use them as a form of stave wedge. So you can see these S-wing hatchets, which I'm a big fan of, have a metal neck on them. And really, if you look at the profile of this, you can see that it has a nice thin portion and then it flares out. I find that really handy, so I can drive that in as a wedge to get things started. And not only do I do my first scoring with it, but then I can use it as my first wedge. That is super handy. So I have a couple of those I'm going to bring with me. I also am going to, of course, have some gloves. I like these rubber-dipped gloves. These reduce the amount of holding force I have to apply, which is huge when it comes to this. This is where you're going to help prevent injuries to your elbows and your arms, because when you're gripping something and you're hitting at the same time, if you're gripping really hard, that really strains all of these tendons in your elbows. So I'm a huge fan of these. They make me just, in general, stronger, it feels like. So I'm going to need some froze and a club. I've got a nice little hardwood mallet here, and I bring a couple of froze with me. Nice profile on this fro. I'll go into this tool later when we get into controlled splitting to tell you what it is about that profile that I really like. And here's another one. This is an older one. It's nice. It's got a nice closed eye on it. A lot of times that weld has come loose, and this one is nice and tight. So I'm a big fan of that right there. Hearing protection, of course, is really important. I mean, I hope I don't have to say that with a chainsaw, but I guess we do. Tape measure, so easy to forget. I've showed up many times without one of those and regretted it. I have some hardwood gluts here. Now these are going to take the place of the wedges very quickly. Once I get my split started, I like to complete it with this because it can open the split up wider than my small wedges. Plus these are basically disposable. As you can see, over time, you're going to work your way through these and then just run them through the wood stove and thank them for a life of service there. A big one to bring with you is some water. It's an easy one to forget, but this is thirsty work and you want to stay hydrated while you do it. I'm also going to bring a saw file, which I've got over here in case I need to touch up my saw at all. And of course, everything I need to run my saw, which is going to be some bar oil. Definitely want to make sure I have what I need to tune the saw or to take it apart if I need to. And I also like to use this pre-mixed fuel. The reason I like the pre-mixed fuel is because it's got no ethanol in it. And it's the ethanol that's going to clog up your carburetor on this and your filter and make it so that your saw stops running. I learned that the hard way. If you ever have to store your saw for a long period, you need to get any of the gas that you've taken from like a gas station out of it. Otherwise, it's going to gum it up pretty hard. This doesn't have that problem. So I spend a little bit more, but it comes pre-mixed, which I like. It saves me a step of something, and it also assures me that I'm not going to have to go back and complain about why my saw isn't working quite right. Besides that, this is an easy one to forget too. This is a cant hook. This is going to help me use some leverage to roll the log around. Moving the log is really important. Obviously, you have to, but it's a huge, heavy thing, and it's really easy to think that you can just push it or shove it, and I'm going to try and encourage you not to do that, because if you're not using leverage, it's just too easy to hurt yourself. Other than that, I have a nice strong box here that I'm going to put everything into. This thing's been in service a long time. It keeps getting patched up, and we're going to put everything in there and get on the road here and hope we haven't forgotten anything once we get to the site.